Good morning, Year 6. This is Mrs. Klein about to read Monday, the 1st of February's book talk. So I'm just going to share the screen with you. Hopefully you can see this in front of you now. Here we go. I'm going to read the questions first, like always, and then we're going to read the text. And hopefully you have a copy of the text in front of you to finger track along with me. So let's look at the questions first. Question 1. How has the author shown that Olive's mother is worried? So we're looking at evidence from the text to see how the author has shown that Olive's mother is worried. So what does she do that shows she's worried? Question 2. How do Olive and Cliff feel about being evacuated? You've got to use evidence from the text to support your answer. So we've got to think about Olive and Cliff, so two separate people with two separate reactions about how they're feeling about being evacuated. And this is really key, the evidence from the text. So you've really got to refer to the text, what it says in the text. Okay, number 3, using the text, explain what the Kindertransport was. So you've got to use the text, not just guess, use the text to explain what the Kindertransport was. So let's scroll up and hopefully you've got a copy of that in front of you now, the text. So we're looking at another extract from Letters from a Lighthouse by Emma Carroll. So here we go. Let's make it here. Later that day, Mum called Cliff and me to the kitchen. On the table stood 2 empty suitcases. Gloria from next door was sitting in a chair, drinking tea. Seeing my forehead, she gave a low whistle. Jeepers, Olive, that bruises all the colours of the rainbow. She's got concussion, Cliff said proudly. Had concussion, I corrected him. Gloria winked at me. Don't you let Jerry get away with it, my girl. Make sure you give him what for. Jerry was what Dad and his army pals used to call Germans, and little reminders like this often made me sad. But it was hard to feel glum with Gloria in our kitchen. She was one of those big, bright people you couldn't help but like, whose throaty laugh made you smile. She was Mum's best friend, and she'd become a sort of auntie to us, not having kids of her own or a husband. He ran off with the circus, she told me once. I didn't know if it was true. As Mum moved about the kitchen making tea, I sat down next to Gloria. Do you know anything about Suki having a boyfriend? I asked her. She gave me a funny look, alarmed almost, before glancing over her shoulder at Mum. Best not to mention your sister at the moment, she whispered, leaning towards me. Your Mum's feeling fragile about the whole business. Sorry, I'm just scrolled up and I've lost my place. Oh dear, I have lost my place. Here we go. I sat back in my seat. It was then I properly took notice of the suitcases on the table. Cliff was clicketing the catches and asking Mum if we were going somewhere nice. Hopefully, Mum twisted her wedding ring, which meant she was nervous. Think about that question. After what happened to you, Olive, and to Suki, I've had to accept it's really not safe for you to stay on in London. Now I was nervous too, because I'd guessed what the suitcases were for. You're evacuating us, aren't you? I said in surprise. But you can't. I mean, you need us here. We need to be here. So think about that question about how the characters are feeling. So that was Olive, okay? That was always what Mum said. We needed to be together, especially after Dad went off to fight. When war was declared, all the schools round our way closed. Our classmates and our teacher, Miss Higgins, got evacuated to Kent, and for a while I'd get postcards from my friends Maggie and Susan, who told me all I was missing, which wasn't much by the sound of it. You know the air raids have got worse these past few months, darling. Mum looked pained. It won't be forever, I promise. I felt guilty when Cliff seemed so excited. So think about how Cliff is feeling. So I felt guilty, Olive, when Cliff seemed so excited. He was already lifting one of the suitcases down from the table and bombarding Mum with the questions. Will I have to share a bedroom? Will the people we stay with be nice? I hope they've got a dog. Can we ask to be with a dog? I don't know, Mum kept saying. You'll have to wait and see. How could we not know? How could we leave not knowing where Suki was? How could I find out about her boyfriend from somewhere deep in the countryside? It was infuriating and disheartening and made my head ache. Lots of children get sent away, Mum said, putting her arm around me. Some even have to move whole countries because of the war. You remember the Kindertransport, don't you? So think about that question about the Kindertransport. I did, vaguely. A year or so ago at school, some children who couldn't speak English joined our class, and we were amazed at how quickly they learned. They'd come over from Germany because, being Jewish, it wasn't safe for them there. Mum said they'd been blamed for all the bad things happening in their country, which was odd, because lots of their parents were musicians and doctors and writers. You'd think their country would be proud of such clever people. Okay, so there we go. So just to remind you, how does the author show that Olive's mother is worried? So if you look in the middle of the text a little bit, around here, you'll be able to see what does mum do to show that she's worried. How do Olive and Cliff feel about being evacuated? So think about Olive's reaction to being evacuated. So go back to what she said to mum, yeah? And then think about what Cliff is feeling. Think about what Cliff is doing and what with the suitcases. Okay, and then the third question, using the text, explain what the Kindertransport was. So I want you to reread that final paragraph because that's where the Kindertransport is mentioned and it explains a little bit what that is. Okay, so don't forget capital letters, full stops. Please, please make sure you pay attention to the evidence from the text. And I hope you enjoy this book talk. See you tomorrow. Bye.